This morning, we revisit a User Group Advisory Council tradition, our discussion with John Scully. John was with us about 6 years ago when we first invited User Group representatives to Apple to discuss their hopes of a working relationship with Apple. It was through this discussion and with John's support that the User Group Connection was first founded. Since then, he's been with each council, listening to your input and incorporating it into his business decisions. For those of you who have met John before, you know that he greatly respects the work user groups do on behalf of Apple and shares your enthusiasm for the abilities of our products and the differences they make. Let's spend some time with John this morning, listening to his perspectives and the issues your groups face in the user group community. John, we're delighted to have you here this morning, and the council, along with all of us in the User Group Connection, welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you very much for coming together for this council meeting. The only thing at Apple that's more important than our products are the people who use them. And it just means a tremendous amount to us that all of you have taken the time not only to come here and to help strengthen the relationship between Apple and user groups across the country, but also that you work so hard during the year to make your user group successful. So I just want you to know that we know what you do, we think it's great, and please keep on doing it. What I'd like to do is to take a few minutes before we start the questions to give you a perspective of some of the really exciting things that are going on at Apple today as we begin the decade of the 1990s. As I think many of you know, about 18 months ago we set Apple on a different course, and the course was to really try to expand the role of Macintosh computers in the personal computing industry. We had been very successful since the introduction of the Macintosh back in 1984, selling the world's most user-friendly computer, but we sold it to a relatively small percentage of the personal computer population. And it became clear as the industry started to slow down in its overall growth, as competitive products were on the horizon, such as Microsoft's Windows, which were trying to adopt many similar features to the Macintosh, that we were going to have a tough time holding on to the third-party software developers' support to continue to build the most innovative software for the Macintosh unless we could significantly increase the penetration in the industry of the Macintosh and unless we could expand the range of choice of our products. And so 18 months ago, I took over the role of managing product development. I brought in Michael Spindler from Europe, who had been very successful in building a tremendously large Macintosh market over there, to become Apple's chief operating officer. And we set the first objectives to say we were going to go for market share. And in order to accomplish this, we had to become much faster in bringing our products to market. We had been able, as other computer companies had during the 1980s, to bring out about 1 or 2 new products a year. But in the 1990s, it was quite clear that we had to bring out a much larger number of new products. And we had to bring them out not only for the desktop, but we had to bring them out for laptops, and we had to bring them out for very high-end performance systems, as well as a lot of peripheral products that would go along and support them. So time to market became a very key criteria for us in product development. To give you a comparison, about 35% of our revenue last year came from new products. This year it's well over 80% will come from new products. And we have introduced a large number of new products this fiscal year, starting with the Macintosh Classic, and the Macintosh LC, and the Macintosh 2SI, as well as low-cost printers. And the year isn't over yet, so there's still a lot of other exciting ones to come. The other thing we did was we focused the product development energies against the low end of the product line, trying to get as much innovation as possible at the lowest possible price points. In the past, the innovation was largely targeted at the high end of the product line with the idea that it would trickle down over time. Third is we tried to get customer input into the features that we put into our products. So the Macintosh Classic was largely designed by users. Users told us they wanted an internal hard drive. Users told us, that they wanted more memory inside the Macintosh Classic. In the Macintosh LC, users told us that they wanted 8-bit color, and we actually went and redesigned the LC and the Classic, while we were in the development process. In future products, ones that we have started in the last year, we have gone out and started with customers first to get their input as to what should be in the products. And I think you'll see some very exciting ideas that customers have given us as products, particularly notebooks, let's take for example, which are coming out later this year, are introduced. The other thing we did was we dramatically dropped the price of Apple's products. And we had done testing about a year ago to find out whether Macintosh was in fact a price-sensitive product. If it was sold at lower prices, would we reach out to new users? And the answer was an emphatic yes. In fact, when we introduced the Macintosh Classic, which is about half the price of the product that it replaced, we literally cut the prices in half. On just about everything that we've introduced, the prices have come down by tremendous amounts. What we found is that we have had a tremendous increase in selling our computers to people who had either never owned a computer before or who had never owned an Apple computer before because the prices were more than they could afford. So I don't know whether you're noticing that in your new people who are coming into your user groups, but all of our research shows that we are definitely reaching out to new people. So in a recession year, when most of the computer industry is not showing very much unit growth at all, the growth of Macintosh units is absolutely booming. The problem for us as a company, however, is that the booming sales are with the lowest priced products, which also have the lowest margins. And so as we look out into the 1990s, we haven't had the affordability to be able to bring the next generations of technology to the industry with the much lower gross margins we've had. And that's one of the major reasons why we've been looking around for over a year now to find a partner that we could work with that would help us be able to shift the industry off its course, which is to become more and more commodity-like in the non-Macintosh area, and to try to, once again in the 90s, as we did back in the 80s, bring some major new innovation to the industry. And this time, the major new innovation will be in object-oriented programming, it'll be in multimedia technologies, it'll be in expanded capabilities with the Macintosh on open systems as well as RISC. So there are going to be a lot of very important and very exciting new technologies that will reach the market because of this new relationship that the IBM company and Apple Computer have entered into. I'd like to point out to you that when we announced the IBM-Apple relationship now just a few weeks ago, that it was probably the shortest press announcement that has ever been put out by the computer industry. And it was just about a page long. There were no quotes in it from either the CEO of IBM or myself. There have been no interviews up until this point by any of the top management of IBM or Apple. So there's been a few people who have been writing about it and speculating about it, but you are the first people to hear from anyone from the top management of Apple or IBM. So I think it's appropriate that I have a chance to speak publicly to user groups about what this can mean. There's been a lot of questions about, can two companies that are so culturally different, IBM, one of the largest, most admired, and one of the most successful corporations in the world, joining with Apple Computer, which is less than 15 years old. It started in a garage that has been driven by passion to change the world, where many of our people have never worked in a large traditional corporation. Is it possible for two companies that are so different in terms of their roots to do something together that can really be successful? And I know that's on a lot of people's minds. What I can tell you is that while we had the shortest press release probably ever in the history of the computer industry, that we had the most intensive discussions, negotiations, and time together in order to understand what it was going to take to actually ship products, not just make press announcements. In fact, there were over 150 people who have been involved for over 2 months, almost around the clock, 7 days a week. And we have been getting to know one another, understanding what it takes to be a win-win for both companies, and importantly, what does it take to have a win for independent software developers who will create new software applications and solutions on top of these platforms, and importantly, where's the win in it for the user? Where's the win in it for the customers? What we found is that there is tremendous complementary areas where we at Apple can learn a lot from IBM with their success in enterprise systems, with their long tradition of focus on customer solutions. And IBM is learning that they can learn a lot from Apple with our focus on end-user systems and our ability to create unique software technologies. And that in the 1990s, no one company can go it alone. And by bringing together the strengths of Apple's core competencies and the strengths of IBM's core competencies, but keeping it out of the bureaucracies of each company. So we've been very careful to say, let's set up either joint efforts or joint ventures that we can pull away from the more traditional organizations of each company. And let's bring in at the start in these discussions the people who are actually going to have to develop the products, and let them get to know each other and let them work through the issues, as opposed to having the top managers agree on some overall relationship without understanding what the details are going to be in order to make it work. This has been the approach that we've taken. So I think that we are going to find that there will be some wonderful products that will come out of this relationship. I think it will set the industry potentially on a brand new course. As a lot of you know, there has not been very much innovation in software applications for about 4 years. It's kind of like we're getting Godfather 3 or Rocky 5. We're getting new features on old ideas. In the 1990s, we have a chance to make as big a breakthrough in the kind of things that computers can do as we did back in the early to mid-1980s. And I'll give you just one example, and then we'll go into questions. With object-based systems, which means that this is a different way of programming where most of the capability that today is done at the applications level is now, with object-based systems, built into the system software in what are called class libraries. And the class libraries sit on top of an object-oriented microkernel. What this means is that capabilities like spreadsheets and word processors and more traditional personal productivity applications, those capabilities are largely implemented at the system software level. So that it means that software developers and users can actually go in and write relatively small code segments, the way you write a hypercard stack in effect, but much easier. And you can have the ability to create usable solutions that tie into things that people want to be able to do that go beyond individual personal productivity. So for example, a lot of people in education are interested in how do you get students to work together in a classroom. A lot of people in business are interested in how do you get individuals to work together to make an organization more productive. The computer industry continues to give greater and greater capabilities with networks and servers and the ability to distribute information across networks. What object-oriented programming allows you to do is to take something that is inherently very complex and to use a technology which dramatically simplifies it so that solutions become the defining ability of software, as opposed to broad, horizontal, shrink-wrapped applications. And it means that the kinds of things that software developers will do in the future will be much more specific to solving problems that groups of people working together want to be able to do. It means that the testing of software, which is one of the most expensive parts of software development, that this is dramatically simplified because of the structure of object-oriented programming. And it means that things like multimedia capabilities, which today have to be added on with special cards or with special software, those things are all built into the base system. So as we go out into the 1990s, we get out into mid-decade, what we will start to see is wonderful new capabilities with new input such as speech, handwriting recognition, gesture. We'll see multimedia capabilities integrated into the system software, and therefore the applications will be able to take advantage of it. We'll see the ability to distribute information across networks in ways that will allow people to work together in what has been called groupware, but where there are relatively few examples today. And all of this will put in the hands of users far more power than they could ever get without this cooperation between IBM and Apple. It brings together the resources of both companies, but it brings together two of the world's most successful technology creators. The problem for a company like Apple is that the cost of the commodity software, or the price of the commodity software, which is DOS and Windows, because it is amortized over 20 million units a year, is sold at a price lower than we can create the software when we can only amortize that across the few million units that Apple sells a year. So we had a choice of either saying we'll have to stop bringing innovation to the industry in the 1990s, or we'll have to charge very high prices for that innovation, and neither one of those alternatives seemed very attractive. So that by bringing together two world-class technology creators, we're able to amortize the development costs across a much larger number of machines, not only Apple and IBM's machines, but one thing we pointed out in the press announcement that we did say, and that is we're making it open to other vendors and to customers, so that the technologies which had always in the past with Apple been available only on Apple hardware. Now these new software technologies are going to be available from other people. So these are very significant changes for us. It meant that we had to make some very soul-searching decisions inside of Apple, and IBM had to make some very soul-searching decisions. But I think that the state of the industry today is such a serious one in terms of lack of innovation, in terms of the commoditization of the industry, in terms of America really potentially losing the leadership in many of these technologies unless something such as this alliance emerged, that it was important enough for IBM and Apple both to make some very fundamental changes. So while it'll be a few years before you'll see some of the technologies that were announced in this agreement, there are some things that you will see very quickly, and that's IBM's now support of the Macintosh and bringing the Macintosh into their most important enterprise markets, and maybe that will come up in some of the questions and we can talk about that further. But anyway, I want to let you be the first to hear from me that Apple is on a course that we started 18 months ago that is going for a much bigger role in personal computing in the 1990s. We're breaking some of our own ground rules. There are no more sacred cows at Apple and things that we won't do. The real test of all of this is, will it make a difference to users? Will users appreciate what we're doing, and can we do it without compromising on the quality of product and the innovation that we've been able to deliver in the past? And I believe that the answer is going to be a solid yes on that. So why don't we begin with the first question?
Apple is focusing on obtaining larger market share, as shown by the introduction of the new low-end machines and an expansion of sales into non-traditional outlets. How will this affect end-user support, and how far along non-traditional lines is Apple willing to go to get share?
Well, that's a very good question, and you're absolutely right. We are going for market share because we will not see the most innovative software appearing on our Macintosh systems unless we do, because it will just be a better profit opportunity for third-party developers to write for alternative systems, even if they don't have the full capabilities of the Macintosh. So we are very much expanding the share of market, and we're doing it not only with product development and pricing, but we're doing it with channels. And the movement into superstores is one further example of that. Now we know that as we reach out to many new users who have never used a computer before, that we've got to provide other means of support. So the 800 number is a good example of that. When we introduced System 7, we also introduced the 800 number online support. We've also introduced on a pay-per-use basis support for customers. And I think that you should expect to see that we will have more direct support relationships between Apple and customers. One thing that is going to be very important in computers in the 1990s is communications. And I think we're already seeing more and more computers being sold with modems built into them. I would hope that as time goes on, that most of our computers would be sold with modems. And as that enabling capability is there, it's going to make it even easier to be able to deliver online support services to end users. And I think there is an important role for the user groups in this regard if we can start to deliver to you as user groups more information that you in turn then can deliver to what will probably be much larger user populations coming into your user groups, that all of these things are going to help us keep a real personal touch in our relationship with users and customers, even as Apple starts to expand the population of Macintosh users.
John, the recently announced Apple-IBM Alliance presents significant opportunities for cross-platform development. What new functionality can end users expect in the areas of connectivity and data exchange? And how will Apple preserve the unique qualities of the Macintosh versus DOS-based systems?
I think there are very few companies today that don't have a mixed environment of vendors' products. And if you have a Macintosh sitting next to an IBM PS2 machine or a Windows MS-DOS machine or a Unix machine, it really isn't going to be effectively used unless it can be integrated across a network and connect into those other systems. What we were particularly excited about in the IBM-Apple relationship is that there are things that are going to start now as well as things that are going to happen in the future. And the things that are starting now is that IBM is now recognizing Macintosh as a real player in their environments. IBM is going to be marketing connectivity products under their label to connect the Macintosh into their servers and systems. And that may sound like a relatively simple statement, but if you just think and ponder on that a moment, what that means to have IBM give the endorsement of the Macintosh into large enterprise markets, I think it will have a tremendous impact of not only the IBM products in establishing credibility that the Macintosh is now a full-fledged player that can walk in through the front door, not just the back door, but I think that it's going to attract third parties to want to do other things on top of those products. So we're very excited about that. We're also excited by the fact that IBM will actually be selling a version of Macintosh in the future. It's not the 68,000 Macintosh that we all know and love. What it is a RISC-based Macintosh built on a Unix kernel. And I think most of you are familiar with Macintosh's AUX. What we're doing is we're porting Macintosh AUX over to IBM's RISC architecture and on top of IBM's AIX, which is their version of Unix. And so this means that IBM customers, when this product is available, will be able to have access to all of the Macintosh productivity applications and it means that those customers will also have access to all the AIX Unix applications. And it means that customers who are interested in seeing the Macintosh applications, systems being offered by more than one vendor, are going to be able to get it from either IBM or from Apple. So those are very dramatic changes for anybody who is involved with enterprise systems, whether it's in government or education or business. And we think it will greatly expand the popularity of Macintosh and hopefully take a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt out of whether it's okay to buy a Mac.
You've mentioned in the past that the single most important market segment to Apple is education. With the current focus on building partnerships and market share in business, and with the aggressive competition in K-12 and higher education, define Apple's commitment to education.
Well, you've certainly touched something very close to my heart, because one of the things that attracted me to Apple Computer was the chance to get involved with education, with information technology tools. And I was personally very disappointed about 2 years ago, because I saw Apple losing its market share in K-12 education. We were having a lot of problems bringing the kinds of products to the K-12 market as a follow-on to our very successful Apple II that the K-12 market wanted. The result was that we weren't getting the kind of innovative software applications that we needed, because we weren't providing the new computers for that market. And people were beginning to question whether Apple still cared as much about education as it had in the past. I can tell you with a great deal of pride and satisfaction for all of our Apple people involved with education that there has been a dramatic turnaround in Apple's role in education since we introduced the Macintosh Classic and the Macintosh LC. Not only have our sales gone up significantly, and our share of market is now back up where we want it to be, but we saw more new software for education introduced in 1991 than we have ever seen in the past, on top of the Macintosh, and taking advantage of the color, low-cost color capabilities of the Macintosh LC. We've also seen a tremendous response to the Apple IIe card, which goes inside the LC, so that there's a bridge for people who have big installed bases of Apple IIs. And I think that we've got the momentum back in education. I think people know that we really still care about it a lot, and as we bring out other technologies like multimedia with QuickTime and things of this sort, future editions of HyperCard, I think education is going to find more and more reasons to point to Apple's real commitment to it.
John, I've got a related question in a sense. I'm speaking for the Apple II constituency. The Apple II is still a very useful and viable computer among the millions of users in the home, small business, and education markets. What is Apple's vision of the future of Apple II technology with regards to these markets, and how does it relate to the Mac LC, which you've already partially answered?
Well, the Apple II has been a phenomenally successful product. It will always be one of the legendary products that defined this industry. Much as I remember when I was growing up, that the Volkswagen Beetle was really the personal productivity version of the automobile. I think it was something that you said, yes, there's a car that's really me. And I think that's what Apple II did so successfully. The best thing we can do with the Apple II technology is to, first of all, make it integrate as well as possible into the areas where we're putting our largest investment in technology creation, and that's with our low-cost Macintoshes. The LC is certainly an excellent example of that, because the LC allows us to take advantage of the 1990s technology, meaning that we can take advantage of ASICs, of much faster processors. We can take advantage of system software capabilities that we can really only implement on the Macintosh, and yet to be able to integrate through communications the Apple II into that networked world, I think is very important. The other thing is that we developed the 2E card because we wanted to have a way of bridging for those people who did have large installed bases of Apple IIs, the ability to add LCs, to those installed bases. The other thing which we've done is have developed a series of cards like the SCSI card, or the video overlay card for the Apple II GS, so that we could add capability to those machines, even though those machines might be several years old. And those are examples, I think, of how we've tried to keep the Apple II and the E and the Apple II GS still viable members of the Apple family, but recognizing that the technology in this industry continues to move very, very rapidly. And if we're going to live up to our other commitment to people, which is to bring them the very best and most advanced technologies that we possibly can at the very best prices, then we have to put the focus that we are on the Macintosh. And then we have to even look at things that go beyond the Macintosh, as we move further out in the decade. So we are selling Apple IIs. We'll continue to sell them as long as there is demand for them. But most of our technology development is going into Macintosh products and trying to give a bridge for those Apple II users and trying to extend the useful life of the Apple IIs with add-on cards and system software such as HyperCard for the Apple II GS are examples of things that we can do for the installed base. And I think we have to sort of strike a balance between how we spend our resources.
John, user groups have traditionally provided end-user support and education, filling voids that Apple cannot or will not address. However, our function within Apple's never been well defined. How do you see, or what do you see as a real strategic value of user groups?
Well, I was really made a convert to user groups about 6 years ago by Ellen Leonce, and she is so enthusiastic, as you all know, and she really grabbed me by the hand and took me around and said, you've got to see what happens out there with user groups. And so I've been a strong supporter of the role of user groups for really some time. We have today 1,400 user groups in the United States. That's about 400,000 members in the United States. There is nothing comparable anywhere else in the computer industry to the Apple user groups. And the thing which I would like to see, particularly as we're now expanding the number of machines dramatically that we're selling, I would like to see us start to try to formalize the role that user groups have in ways beyond what we've done so far. So I think we've given recognition to user groups. The fact that you all come together as an advisory council each year, and I have a chance to meet with you is one example of that. But I think that particularly in the area of training, that user groups perform a tremendously valuable service. And I know that we're making efforts to try to get more materials to you, whether it's on CD-ROM, whether it's videotapes, whether it's doing overprinting of some of the collateral materials that we have when we introduce new products. I think we've got to find more ways. And what I hope has come out of your discussions here at this advisory council are perhaps some suggestions and hopefully a chance to raise the awareness of people inside of Apple of just how important the role of user groups can be, not only for users, because I think you've demonstrated that, but also for the success of Apple. And the feedback I'm getting from Apple people is that you've really made an impression on a lot of them. And I'm hoping that we'll see, as we come back for future advisory council meetings, that we've made even more progress in how we can formalize your role.
HyperCard's original status is system software, and its shift to Claris has created a great deal of concern and confusion. Apple traditionally allowed dealers and user groups to provide updates to system software. How does Apple plan to handle these types of upgrades in the future?
Well, Apple has had to make some changes, not all of them popular, but in order to dramatically reduce the price of our products, remember a Macintosh Classic is about half the price of a Macintosh SE. The Macintosh LC is about half the price of what the lowest cost color Macintosh was before it. And there's still a lot of other Macintoshes still to come, including notebooks and others, which are going to be also very aggressively marketed. So in order to bring our expenses down, we had to say, what things do we put in the base system that we make available to everybody, and what things are really not used by everybody, even though they may be enthusiastically used by some percentage of the population, and how do we make sure that we give the largest number of people the lowest possible price for the systems that we sell. In that context, we moved HyperCard from a product that we gave away free to a product that is now sold as an application, not a system software, by Claris. We have continued to invest very aggressively in HyperCard, not only with 2.0 as you know today, but also things that will be coming in the future with future versions of HyperCard, because we want it to grow in terms of its capabilities. There is actually a relatively small percentage of Macintosh users use HyperCard. But the users who do use HyperCard are fanatics about it. And I suspect that there isn't one of you here who hasn't written some HyperCard stacks or probably has very strong opinions about the important role of HyperCard. We had to make some tough business calls. They had to do with expenses, and they had to do with our ability to be able to bring dramatically lower price levels for Macintoshes to users. And so we made a few people probably a little bit unhappy along the way. I hope we made other people have a chance to use a Mac who might not have been able to afford it otherwise. And yes, we are going to continue to have future releases of HyperCard. And no, it's not sold as system software in Macintosh as it used to be, but it does have very strong support from Apple Inc. Through our Claris subsidiary.
Apple prides itself as providing future-oriented solutions and enabling growth without disruption. How strong is Apple's commitment to satisfying the upgrade needs of loyal customers, including users of Apple IIs up to the top of the Macintosh line? Will Apple, for example, allow present Mac users to take full advantage of the wonderful features of System 7 by providing 32-bit clean ROM upgrades, which in some instances even are needed to make CPUs meet specifications that were touted at the time of sale?
Well, I don't think there is a company that has taken more seriously the upgrade of its installed base than Apple Computer has. The fact is that we are dealing with technology that is constantly changing. The fact is that Apple, at the same time that it is trying to focus on the needs of the installed base, is also trying to push the envelope of the most innovative advances in software technologies that it possibly can. This is the philosophy that was clearly behind the introduction of System 7. We could have just focused System 7 on a certain class of machines at the very high end of the product line. But as you know, System 7 is able to run on any Macintosh, starting with the Macintosh Classic that has 2 megabytes of memory and a hard drive. Now, as you move up through the product line, you're able to get more and more advantages from some of the features of System 7. So if you have memory management unit, you're able to do things that you couldn't do on a Macintosh Classic. There are products in our line that we wish had more of the capabilities that we have in some of the newer products. And a good example of that is the SE30 and the Macintosh 2CX. Do not have the 32-bit clean that you referred to in your question. we are looking at that, what we can do with the ROMs in those products. But those ROMs were not designed with that in mind at the time because that wasn't part of the technology that existed at that time. As new technologies have been created, like 32-bit clean, we have made sure with those products that have the PMMU that they do have 32-bit clean. So we've tried to be very consistent in what we say to the installed base, that we want to bring you along as best we can. Sometimes it just isn't easy to do. As an example, you pointed out with 32-bit clean. That doesn't mean we don't continue to look at that and we aren't evaluating it and trying to find ways to do it. It also doesn't mean that there aren't innovative third-party companies out there who are looking for software solutions that will try to fill a gap. But some of these things are not easy to do. And again, Apple has got to make tough choices with our resources. We can't, unfortunately, give it to you both ways. We can't say we will dramatically lower our gross margins, therefore lower the prices, therefore focus our technology on bringing out new products which customers are demanding, like notebooks or like classics or LCs or low-cost printers, and then somehow miraculously say, but we can go and do all the things that we always did in the past when we had a lot more resources. So we've had to make some choices which aren't easy ones. But I think for the most part, I think we've been pretty consistent in trying to stick with bringing our install base as long as best we can. And I think it's a direction that is been consistent with Apple over a long period of time, and one which is still pretty unique in this industry.
Apple's product line has consistently reflected a commitment to bringing innovative technologies to the personal computer market. What emerging technologies do you see steering Apple's research and development efforts over the coming years, and who are the beneficiaries?
Well, I think that I can speak with some knowledge of that because for the last 18 months, the most important role that I've had at Apple has been to focus on our technology directions. And what I can say is that what we've been looking at are those technologies which will make the personal computer even more personal in the 1990s. What are the things that will allow us to have the kind of breakthroughs in the 90s with personal computers, taking advantage of software technologies and hardware technologies that will be the equivalents of what Lisa and Macintosh were in the 1980s, or the Apple II was back in the 1970s. And that's going to include things like object-based systems technologies, which I talked about in my opening remarks. It's going to include multimedia technologies, the introduction of QuickTime, which introduces temporal management. When personal computers were conceived, no one really thought about time management. But then when you want to deal with animation and text and graphics and video, you want to be able to edit those, you've got to think over time. And so temporal management, device control, things like compression algorithms that will let you do in software, video compressions. These are important technologies. You will see from Apple in the future some great things in miniaturization. We believe that the personal computer will not have to be something that you go to for so many minutes a day, and then when you're not at your desk, you cannot do personal computing. In the 1990s, clearly miniaturization and mobility are going to be important technological areas for advancement, so that computers will get smaller and smaller, laptops, notebooks, handhelds, communications will be built into computers. At Apple, you would expect us to build it into the basic architecture, not just bolt it on. So that's something that we're paying a lot of attention to. And wireless communications will be, I think, as important as wired communications. You'll see new input technologies, including handwriting, gesture, speech. So there are some remarkably exciting technologies that I think Apple will continue to be able to be the leader in bringing to users in the 1990s as we did in the 1980s. The problem is that the investment of bringing out a new product as revolutionary as the Macintosh in the 1990s is at least 10 times more expensive. And the investment for third-party products, which is no longer Mac Write and Mac Paint is when we introduced the Macintosh, but is connectivity products, printing products, peripheral products, networking products, things like this can actually go up into the billions of dollars. So the only way that Apple could continue to fulfill its role as the innovator in the industry for users was to begin to open its technologies up and begin to work with other companies, and that's a lot of what's behind the IBM-Apple relationship. We very definitely don't want this to be a commodity industry. There's no reason why the industry has to be held back to 1980 technologies when there's some wonderful new things on the horizon for the 1990s. And I can tell you that we are even more committed to being an innovator in the 1990s than I think anybody else. And we think that there's still a revolution ahead. It's in the hands of users, and it's our job to make sure it gets there quickly.
John, you've consistently expressed considerable personal support for user groups and their role as Apple partners. What can you do in the next business year to extend this commitment throughout the company?
I think that we have got to raise the profile of user groups throughout the company. Just the fact that I come and I meet with the advisory council doesn't go unnoticed across Apple. There's a lot of traffic over Apple Link about the advisory council meetings. Many of the ideas that are brought up end up on bulletin boards, and people discuss them and debate them. And in typical Apple fashion, there's usually pretty heated debates about some of these issues, and I think that's all very, very positive because what it does is it reinforces that Apple is the user's company. I mean, we started in a users club. It was called the Homebrew Computer Club. When Steve Wozniak, wanted to create a computer that he couldn't afford to go out and buy, so he created the first personal computer in really the Apple paradigm to go and show off to his friends at a user club. There aren't many computer companies that began in a user club. So people talk about Apple beginning in a garage. It really began in a user club. And I think that those roots have held to really be definers of what Apple is today. So I would hope that the role of user groups becomes more formalized, becomes higher profile, and particularly as Apple starts to move out to new channels, high volume channels, where users are probably going to know less about computers when they walk in, that the user groups are going to be even more important in filling the gap between the knowledge of that user when he walks out with his first Macintosh and what that user is going to want to be able to do once they realize what the Macintosh is capable of. And I think that the training role of the user group becomes far more important in the 1990s than it was perhaps in the 1980s. So I think that I'm going to do everything I can to try to get that message out across Apple, and I'm sure you'll try to do the same. So between the both of us, I hope we're successful.
There have been remarkable changes in this past year in global and political outlooks in the world. How do these changes, for example, in Eastern Europe, affect Apple's marketing and technology development strategies?
Well, I think that the changes that are going on in Eastern Europe are remarkable. I remember when we introduced the new products last fall, the Macintosh Classic, the LC, and the SI, we actually had a live satellite two-way communications with a group of users who had just received their first Macintosh in East Germany days before the launch of the product. And to be perfectly honest, we all had a lump in our throat, and it was a very emotional moment because we were listening to people who had just been freed from a totalitarian system, who had just joined the free world. And what they were talking about was freedom of their rights as individuals and the freedom to publish and to use tools that they had only heard of and never had a chance to touch before, and that was the Macintosh desktop publishing system. And they showed us what they could do with their first newsletters that they were creating. This is happening all across Eastern Europe. It's happening across the Soviet Union. I've traveled to that part of the world. We're actively marketing products in Eastern Europe today. We're doing the same thing in the Soviet Union. And when we talk about changing the world, if you ever wanted to see it in real life happening, then you ought to go over there, because computers are probably having more impact, in those former totalitarian countries than perhaps anywhere else, as these people for the first time are able to get a tool, a technology tool that actually allows them to do the things that we talk about in abstract terms when we say freedom.
When released, AppleLink was a very innovative and exemplary means of taking advantage of computer communication technology. While AppleLink has tremendous potential for uniting and serving the Apple community, its usefulness has been severely hampered by the present rate structure and the abandonment of AppleLink Personal Edition. How will Apple address this?
Well, we have about 40,000 users on AppleLink today. And since we have 15,000 employees at Apple, that means there are about 25,000 people who aren't employees who are using the AppleLink services. As we went to the new financial model, which was to bring down gross margins, dramatically reduce the prices of our products, we had to go look across every area of expense in the company. And the AppleLink services was another example of that. We couldn't afford to subsidize people on a service if that was going to mean that we'd have to sell our computers at a higher price. What we are doing, though, is we're trying to adjust to the fact that there are a lot of people who still want to be able to get on AppleLink services, but they may not be able to afford the price structures that we have today. So there is development work going on inside of Apple. Keep in mind that the AppleLink services are provided by a third-party company, not by Apple. And therefore, we have to pay the third-party company. And if we can do some of those things with Apple's own technology, there's the potential of being able to bring the cost down. If we can bring the cost down, then obviously we'd like to be able to bring the prices down. So while I can't announce anything today, I can tell you that there is very active development going on to see if there is a less expensive way that we can deliver some of those services. And I believe as more and more Macintoshes are sold with modems in them, there's going to be even more interest for those kinds of services. And as we start to deliver more online support to customers via modems, there's going to be more incentives for people to want to have services out there. So I think all of the momentum of change that is going on inside of Apple, inside of the industry, is going to work hopefully favorably to the advantage of users in the future.
So if we stimulate the frog's muscle
and then change the sodium more and see if the sodium outside the cell makes a difference.
But you can see that the oxygen is actually buried in the molecule.
There's one article there and one article there, all righty? But always look before you cut, all right? Okay?
These students come out of high school naive. They may have a lot of naive ideas about what it means to be a scientist, what it means to be a biologist. They're going out there into a difficult major, and they're going to be learning a huge mass of information. If they don't have some place to put that, if they don't have some framework upon which they can start hanging their information so that it makes sense and they can bring it into understanding rather than just facts, then they're going to have problems.
In the biology program at the University of California at Santa Barbara, undergraduate students are learning to solve problems the way real scientists do. And they're doing this through an innovative approach to scientific instruction.
We want to show students how real scientists work in their work. How do they approach their topic? How do they find the questions that they want to answer? We want to give them experience doing that and not just offer them a rote program of things to learn and remember, but to have the actual experience of setting up their own experiments.
One important change in the laboratory. The experiments are enhanced with computer technology.
As you can imagine, it's not easy to set up biological experiments for so many people. We can't take 500 people out into the field and turn over rocks and see what's under them, or make field studies. We can't give them that experience, but we can simulate it on the computer.
So we reset these to 0 first? Right. And we want the second and third row.
Yeah, it's like first line.
We're working with the model neuron program on Macintosh.
It just simulates what would actually happen in a real neuron, but quicker, and the computer just graphs what actually happens.
We do it by developing software programs that are interactive, that allow the student to set up his own experiment, more like real research science.
The computer generates the action potential. So in other words, it creates the same situation as when you stimulate the nerve within the animal's body. And then the program is such that they can manipulate it, they can change the concentration of ions going in and out across the membrane, they can increase the size of the action potential, they can decrease it. And we can do all those things with the program. It was very exciting.
So now, if you want to add some of the excitatory, let's try it.
Well, Max got the students a lot more interested in the lab. I've noticed it this year that they somehow seem much more excited about the experiments. They say, hey, let's look at this thing on the computer.
We want to reduce the difference between what introductory level students are able to do in lab and what real science people do when they're doing their job.
Well, you just see your results faster. You don't have to take the data, go calculate the data and graph it. You see the results right there, and then you can think about why you got them.
When you give students or faculty members both tools and choices, you give them the power to really investigate things. You give them the power to be creative, dynamic, and you get them turned on.
We can pull up another molecule, can't we? Yeah, let's put a pull up. Yeah.
An exciting new part of the undergraduate biology program is 3D molecular modeling, bringing advanced scientific concepts to introductory courses.
This last year, we've developed a molecular modeling initiative, which is an interdisciplinary initiative involving 3 departments, chemistry and biology and psychology. And these labs are connected to VAXs, which are running the Chemex software. So we have classrooms of Max, and we're able to bring the actual imaging from molecular modeling through networking into the lab.
It's like, after this, you don't want to go back to the pen and paper, you know, writing it down, because you can see it
up on the
much better.
screen. You can just throw it up on the screen and rotate it.
It changes teaching because it's much easier for me to visualize, even personally, the chemical structures. It's when you see it on the computer, you rotate it, you can look at the different chemical groups, you get an idea as to perhaps where the active site is, you know, what part of the molecule is causing the effect that you're looking for.
Being able to bring things that you can't normally see up into a 3D system, to be able to rotate it is just like walking around the molecule. So the student has an advantage, and the teacher, of completely interacting in a much different way with what they're seeing.
I'd like to talk about the very unique and special properties of hemoglobin.
Before we had the Macintosh, we just simply weren't able to do this at all. It wasn't even in the curriculum.
Here it is, step by step. There's, 3 or 4 hypercard sequences that tell you exactly how to do it.
Every day, the faculty at UCSB faces the problem of communicating a huge amount of complex scientific knowledge. Macintosh is part of the solution.
We have what we think is a really exciting program here. We have a team of people who have come together to produce a series of software programs that will be used in our introductory courses to present material to our introductory level students in a way that we have never been able to do that before. And the computer is making that possible. And now building this customized software here, and putting it into our own courses is what's really fun.
Development previous to maybe 2 or 3 years ago, development was a very time-consuming and expensive process, and it involved big teams of people and big sums of money. And essentially that has changed, and I think probably the thing that's changed it most is the introduction of HyperCard. It's made it possible for people in the subject areas, graduate students in the subject areas, to do effective programming and an effective adaptation of technology to local needs. For example, you can take a video disc that's been made, say, out of some research footage that's just come in, and you can very quickly and easily adapt it and repurpose it to the needs of the classroom.
This stuff's really cool. That right there.
Isn't
That's neat. Using programs such as HyperCard and Macamind Director, I'm able to put together fairly complicated, really nice-looking animation, very realistic animation that the students respond to immediately. They recognize it, it's interactive, it's quick, and the students like it.
The value of the Macintosh is that we can modify programs easily, we can customize programs easily, and we don't have to spend a lot of time instructing the student how to use it.
You start giving them these powerful tools and the right software, and they forget that there's a computer there. They're going straight from their brain to the output. I think that's what you're striving for, is to have the computer interact with the students in such a way that the students forget that they're using a computer and they get to put all of their mental energy into understanding the material at hand.
The ambitious goal of the program here at UCSB has been to teach students to think like scientists by giving them real science to work with. Now faculty, students, and Macintosh work together in this exciting approach to scientific instruction.
Good morning. My name is Craig Elliott. I'm the manager of the User Group Connection at Apple. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Got a great turnout this morning for our annual, semi-annual MacWorld breakfast. I'd like to take a few minutes up front. We've got a good program today, I think. We're going to talk to a number of people about how user groups can work with developers better, actually get the inside scoop on working with developers from a few developers who've offered to give us the inside track on what happens inside the company when they're discussing user group programs. First, I'd like to take a couple minutes to talk about some things that are going on with the User Group Connection and user groups in general, give you some ideas, probably things that you've heard about, but to reiterate some messages and make sure that you go back and tell your groups about some exciting things that are coming up. I'd like to make some introductions now. Actually, I'd like to introduce the User Group Connection staff. Is everybody around? First, I'd like to introduce Carmela Zamora. Carmela put the breakfast on this morning and got us all food and things too. She's a big hand. And in typical fashion was probably on about an hour and a half sleep after the Addison Wesley party. So, Charlie Schaff is the manager of our corporate and government user groups. Charlie. Rye Livingston manages community groups. Michelle Fries, our communication specialist. She puts together all the monthly mailings that you receive. Jerry Starr manages professional associations. And Dorothy Lewis, our summer intern, who put together the promotion with Quicken to do the financial templates and things this summer. So, second thing on my sheet is everybody familiar with the System 7 awareness contest? Show of hands. not too bad, not too bad. We heard a number of things from user groups all over the country about some really exciting things they were doing from a training standpoint and events, and doing a lot to get the awareness of System 7 up within their membership. So we talked to the people in worldwide product management and the Apple USA product people, and we'd like to reward and give some incentive to user groups who are doing these kind of things. So the contest is already started. We've got information in the user group mailings over the last couple months, and it'll be running through September 1st. And basically what we'd like you to do is document the things that you're doing to promote System 7 awareness in your user group and your community. Send us basically an essay of what you've done, and we'll be awarding Macintosh LCs and Style Writers to the top 4 groups in size categories, so you won't be competing against the larger groups if you're a smaller group. So we think that's going to be pretty exciting. It'll also be, the winners will be announced on the UGTV broadcast on September 25th. Another thing that we just got done doing, another show of hands, how many people have heard of the User Group Advisory Council? Maybe about half. One thing that we do is each year we try and take as best a cut we can to try and pick about 16 people from the user group community that represent all the different types of user groups. And that's a pretty large variety. We try and get people from corporate user groups as well as community user groups, from government agency user groups as well as education, all the different types of groups. We try to get a broad range of demographic coverage so the whole country is covered, as well as groups as large as the BCS down to groups of 20 or 30 members. And so with all those criteria, we try and pick a sample of people to bring out to Cupertino for about a 3-day working session with not only ourselves at the User Group Connection, but other Apple managers. In fact, John Scully and Bob Puett met with our advisory council this year, and gave a lot of good feedback and a lot of good input to people from a product standpoint as well as a marketing standpoint, the executives, and also helped us at the User Group Connection form our business plan. So you'll be seeing some things in Quick Connect and some other in our mailing and some other documents in our mailing as well as on America Online and Apple Link, following up with what happened this year. And we'd also like your feedback and input for next year as we pull our advisory council together. These folks are representatives of all user groups, the best we can do. It'd be great to bring 1,400 people to Cupertino, but just didn't fit the budget this year. So we tried to pick a cross-section. So that's our advisory council that just got done. One more thing that will be coming out, I believe, in the September or October mailing is we've had a summer intern this year, Dorothy Liu, who's put together in conjunction with the people from Intuit some financial templates for user groups, nonprofit accounting package in effect in conjunction with Quicken 3.0 and Quicken for the Apple II. So we'll be sending that out, including full versions of the software as well as the templates and workbooks that we put together to try and help manage finances. That was a big issue last year. We heard from a lot of user groups that are having difficulty with financial management. So I think we have some good tools in place. Should be out in the September-October mailing. And thanks to the people from Intuit for working very hard with us as well as providing the software in conjunction with these templates. We've also worked with Claris on FileMaker Pro templates for membership database. And it's a very sophisticated database. The people at Claris, including some of the product managers, have done a job and come up with some really whizzy templates to help you manage membership. And both of these, I think, could be used as either products if you're interested in using them, or as just some idea generations if you're using other products, other third-party products to do membership management as well as accounting. So that's some stuff that's coming up from the User Group Connection. We also have some exciting programs from other areas of Apple, and right now I'd like to introduce Suzanne Dills. And Suzanne is, let me get this right, the APTA Marketing Program Manager. There's been some changes in the APTA program, as well as some things that are going on with programming SIGs. So Suzanne, if you come up, we'll take a few minutes and hear about the changes in those programs from Apple.
Good morning. How many of you are familiar with APTA? Sure, you know us, don't you? We got some big news for you. How many of you have been by Apple Developer Central already? Come to see us. Oh, good. That means a lot of you still have time left today to come and see us. We're upstairs in the World Trade Center, City View 2 ballroom. That's where a lot of the developer action is going on. And don't feel shy if you're not a C or Pascal programmer. If you're HyperTalk or multimedia, there's a lot going on for you. I think the neat thing about APTA is we do have something for everyone. We've got a lot of different tools, both Apple and third-party tools. That includes hypermedia, multimedia tools, debuggers, compilers, languages, utilities, references. We've also got a lot of resources that we've instituted this year, and we'd like you to come by and see them. One of the neat things about user groups is you like to help yourself. And one of the things we want to do is to encourage that by offering some new things. In fact, the thing that we're raffling off this morning is our Developer Resource Kit, which has, among other things, Apple Link in it. It also has a number of resource guides in it, coupons, subscription to develop, etc. So we're really trying to get people to help themselves, and user groups are a big part of that. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then lots of information for you. But we got some big news for you to make that even easier for you. We want to make it really easy. A lot of people say, how do I get started in Macintosh or Apple development? We want to make it really easy for you to get started and keep going in it, and also to find and order and purchase development tools. So the big news is, yes, no more ATA subscriptions. Yay! And we have a brand new redesigned catalog, and if you haven't seen it, it's another great reason to come see us at Apple Developer Central. It's totally redesigned. It's a great looking product catalog, lots of color pictures in it, etc. So come by and take a look, get a copy from us, and start looking through it at all the things that you can participate in. There's one other thing I want to talk to you about also, and that is the fact that we really believe in user groups. It's something that's very, very important to APTA. One of the things that I've been working on is a pilot program with some of the user group programming SIGs. There's actually about 80 programming SIGs, special interest groups, that have been identified among Apple user groups, and you're a great source for people. A lot of our developers say, well, how can I get questions answered? Where can I find other developers that have similar interests? And we say, go find a user group programming SIG. We send them to that 800 number. And what we find is you offer things like meetings, bulletin board services, hotlines, newsletters. There's filled with things. I've been working with people like Nancy Bird from Washington Apple Pie, or the people, Steve Riggins in the LA group, or Mac Technics in Ann Arbor. They do training programs. They do sample code discs. I'm always amazed at the number of things that come from volunteer actions. They're also a great network, like I said. They create community among people. People will simply want to get together and share their needs and share their information. The other thing is, and Craig's theme was, developers and getting some developers in. It's a great use for your general meetings as well. You can draw upon that developer SIG as a pool of talent for giving presentations to your own general group as well. So one last thing for you. How do you get your own programming SIG started? How many of you currently have a programming SIG? Terrific. Okay, well, we'd like to get some more of you interested. There's lots of ways to start them. And that is, first of all, maybe make an announcement in your local general meeting and ask questions. How many of you know of developers who'd like to get together? This ranges from everything, usually from people dealing in HyperTalk and HyperCard, to people who want to get more involved with C or Pascal or object-oriented programming, things like that. And one of the ways we find, these are suggestions, by the way, that I got from the National Apple User Group meeting, is put a query in the newsletter or post it on your BBS and ask for information. Also, check with local universities. Lots of students and professors there want to get involved with your local community user group. There's also local businesses. There's in-house user groups that like to make a connection with you. And you can ask around at dealers or local Apple offices and say, if you hear of developers who'd like to get connected, we'd like to help get something started. The other thing is get connected to other user groups. There's large developer associations like the Mac App Developer Association or Splash for semantic programmers that are starting to plant local groups, and they'd sure like to get connected to your community groups. And last but not least, let us know about your activities. And you say, boy, you're either brave or crazy to post your Apple Link address, but I'd like to hear from you. If you're interested in starting a group, a programming SIG, or you've already got one started, please, I'd really like to hear about your activities, and contact me at dells.s. So come see us at Apple Developer Central. The good news is there's no more subscription fee. We're just a phone call away now from getting some great Apple products. Thanks, and keep on developing with us.
The kind of theme of our program today is working with developers. User groups and developers have had a lot of great relationships, some tenuous relationships over the years, and a lot of different things. And we think one of the real value user groups have is to the Apple developer community. One of the things we did at the User Group Connection, in fact, Charlie Schaff headed it up with the rest of the team, is we put out a publication called Developer Connect. This is one you guys didn't get. It went out to 8,000 developers a month or two ago, and it goes through and kind of documents the value of user groups. We're trying to encourage developers to work with user groups and also give them a number of ways that they can start to work with groups. So what we'd like to do today is bring up a couple developers to help you as user group leaders understand how to work with developers kind of from the inside. I brought a couple folks here who have been working very closely with user groups, and this isn't really a presentation that they're going to give to try and pitch you on their stuff. It's more of a presentation to give you an idea of what goes on inside the organization of a developer and what kind of things help determine the criteria that they can use when they're trying to develop their user group programs, speaking engagements, and other offers. So it's kind of an inside look. And it might be kind of business-like. I asked them to really put it on the line about the hard numbers and things that are looked at and the ways that user groups can present themselves better in order to work with developers and to show the side that shows developers a profitable relationship. That's what they're in business to do. So the two people I've asked to come up are Larry Moss from Aldus and Kathy Ryan from Quantum, America Online. And I guess first I'd like to ask Kathy to come up. Kathy's Director of Product Marketing at Quantum. And since Quantum's a smaller company, a service-based company by the nature of their business, I think she has some unique angles on how to work with user groups. Kathy?
Hi, it's really good to meet some of you in person that I've met online. Part of my responsibility at America Online is to serve as the liaison to user groups, and so I hear a lot from you on many occasions asking for visits, for product, for hours online, for funding, for community activities. And there's a harsh reality at work that I wanted to tell you about a little bit when it comes to funding user group activities. And that is that sometimes it's a really hard sell. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. And one is that it's hard sometimes to communicate the tangible benefits of a user group activity. And I'm sure that you run into that on your own when you're dealing with developers. We all know the buzzwords that you're power users, that you're very active users, that you're purchase influencers. But a marketing director deals with the bottom line, and sometimes it's hard to translate that into actual figures when you're talking about funding a project. So that's something that you should be aware of when you're going out to developers. And the other challenge that you have is that there's so many of you, and for a developer looking out at all of you, you're not really centralized. There are a number of groups. They tend to have about 100 people each. Some of them have more, but it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're talking about sending funding out to groups for activities. So that's another challenge that you have. And in the interest of seeing developers like America Online and the others work with the user groups more effectively, I put together 6 tips from a developer standpoint that I think will help us work together and help you present your case to developers when you're going after them for funding. Tip number 1, you should customize your message to the developer. Don't approach every developer that you're going after with the same rap. You have to understand the motivations of your developer. Are they looking for sales? Are they looking for public relations? Are they looking for recognition within their industry? You have to understand how they make their money and how they're limited. One thing that I was talking about with Larry from Aldus before this presentation is that America Online does not sell product. We give our product away for free. So it's not always a benefit to say, well, we can sell this many of them. I'm more interested in your enthusiasm if you're going to be an active user of the product. Understand that every developer has a problem, a marketing problem, and try to pinpoint how your group can be the solution to that problem. And that's really going to help you make your case with a developer. The second tip I have for you is to know your strength and have someone in your group whose job it is to approach developers who can articulate what your strengths are. The piece of material that's put together by the UGC, they have their survey, their Developer Connect. It's a good idea for you to have that in your back pocket when you're approaching a developer. But probably even more importantly than that, to understand the strengths of your own group. you might consider surveying your group and finding out what products your group uses, what types of people are in your group. If you're affiliated with an educational institution, that's a piece of information that's going to be of interest to a developer of an educational product, and you should try to promote that as much as you can. And recognize, and this is a tough one for those of you that are smaller groups, that to a developer, size can be strength. And I would urge you when you're dealing with developers to see how you can work together, either by regionalizing with other groups, and to come to developers with greater numbers, either in attending a meeting or in the power of the promotion that you're going to give. It really makes a difference in dollars and cents. And I know that that's tough because it's a struggle to be a smaller group, but it's reality. The third tip is to understand the budgeting process that a marketing director has to go to. Probably one of the biggest career events every year that a marketing director goes through is the presentation of the annual budget. And that's where you put all your good ideas out there and what they're going to cost, and you show them to your board of directors or whoever's funding your marketing program, and you go through a process of eliminating what's going to make sense and what isn't. If you can find out for the developer that you're targeting, when they go through their fiscal planning process, you can get right in there with your proposal for the year's funding, and they're going to be very receptive to it at that time. Now, for America Online, I present a budget in July, so if you hit me around April, I'm pretty receptive to any ideas that you have for programs that you might want to fund or activities. Every marketing director builds a miscellaneous item into their budget, and unfortunately that's where user group funding tends to come from. It tends to be the smallest budgetary expense, and as the year goes by, everybody's vying for it. So you don't want to see yourself stuck in that miscellaneous category because you weren't right in there up front with a proposal. The fourth tip is to find a unique benefit that your group can offer the developer. Too often we hear, can you come to our meeting, can you give us a product, and we don't really hear back from you what you can give us in return. And it really is a business. We're looking for, when we give out consideration, we expect something back. And the key word here is something tangible. Can you promote us in your newsletter? Can you review our product? If we fund a community activity, what kind of public relations do you have planned? And something else that I don't think that user groups think of enough is that you're a very powerful source of ideas and feedback. What about beta testing and product development feedback? That's probably one of the more valuable things that you have to offer. And I have to say, from America Online's standpoint, that we're developing the 2.0 version of our software, and you guys are the ones who gave us the features. And I'd say that probably about 300 of you are beta testing it right now. I'm sure a lot of you out there right now are beta testing. And that's something very valuable that you've provided us, probably more valuable than your online usage time. The fifth tip I have is to promote your results. And an example that I'll use here is that I know that there have been about at least 100 reviews of America Online in your newsletters, which are very powerful promotional tools. None of you have ever sent me the review that you printed for your product with your business card attached saying, just wanted to let you know, FYI, this is a promotion that we gave you. I've found out about them through MNS, which has sent me some of the articles, and occasionally someone from the user group council will send me an article. But you guys don't promote yourself by telling me how you promoted America Online. And I think that's something that you should keep in mind. When you write a review, send it to the developer. And when they see that, they're going to be a little bit more receptive to any ideas that you come up with in the future. And this is something that they can show that their manager, their boss, and say, this is where the money that we spent went to. This is what we got out of it. And if you can think of some kind of creative way, if you're doing a promotion with a developer, that it can be traced back to your group as the source. And that's a tough one sometimes, but either through a coupon included in a newsletter or through some other kind of tracking, even as simple as when you call that 800 number, tell them that you learned it from X user group. That kind of thing is going to be very helpful for a developer in planning promotions. Then my final tip is stay in touch with us. We're not really looking for one-shot type promotions. When you look at the whole market out there, user groups are not most of the market. So even if we were to get every single user group person in this room or in the country on the America Online bandwagon or whatever the product might be, we still wouldn't be making it as a company. So instead of the kind of one-shot approach, let's have a partnership of ongoing feedback. And I think any developer would say the same. Don't just call up when you've got a meeting and you need a speaker or you need a raffle. Stay in touch, give us feedback on the products, and always be coming up with new ideas. And if you do that, when you come to us and you're looking for some kind of consideration, we know you and we like you, and we already know we can work well with you. So it makes more sense for us. Everything that I've said here is kind of basic because you're all not just user group people. You're people who are successful in business or in your personal lives or as writers or whatever you do for a living. And so I would say that the same techniques that you use to promote yourself within your organization, when you're looking for a job, when you're promoting products that your company might sell, you should use those same techniques to promote your user groups to developers. And I think that will probably help the developer-user group relationship that we're talking about today. The last thing I have to say is kind of a plug for America Online, and that is that we've got a user group forum on America Online, and every single user group is entitled to have 2 user group ambassadors online. And for those people, the monthly fee of $5.95 will be waived. We have about 250 user group ambassadors on right now, and if you figure there's at least 1,000 user groups out there, that means we're running a little short. We could have 2,000 people online who were taking advantage of that. If you're online or not online and would like to take advantage of the user group ambassador program, send me some email, Kathy R. on America Online, and we can get you set up, and we can start that dialogue that will help us exchange information about our problems and our marketing challenges, and it should be a first step to working together.
Thanks, Kathy. Now I'd like to introduce Larry Moss, and Larry has kind of an interesting job. Larry is the Apple account manager for Aldus. He's the person that takes care of Apple, if you will. So he's also been a big user group supporter and helped us out a lot at the User Group Connection, and has always been there when we needed help, and I think he'll have some insights on how to work with a larger company and a company that's structured a little bit differently, obviously selling products up front. Larry?
Good morning. Oh my God. This is a user group breakfast, isn't it? Oh, shoot. Hey. Of course you know I read Guy's book. My name is Larry Moss, and I'm the Apple account manager for Aldus. I've actually had this job now for 3.5 years. And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, what does that really mean? And what it means is I manage our relationship with Apple Computer. Well, about a year ago, someone came up to me and said, Larry, how do you possibly manage Apple Computer? And I said to them, well, you have to realize, does the person who rides the bucking bronco really ride the bucking bronco? No, they just do it and try to get the most out of the experience. Well, obviously we relate, all of you can understand, that the reason why we work with Apple is because we get a lot out of that experience. So what I'm here to talk about is specifically, as a developer, how we can work better together. Because what we want to do is enhance our relationship with you. We realize that in this case, one hand really does wash the other. And that we want to work with you in all your events and in all your opportunities. And like Kathy said, that there are a lot of issues when you're dealing with developers, and probably the most important issue is to recognize that developers really are different. whether they sell hardware or software, whether they're large or whether they're small. The other thing that you have to realize is that the companies, and quite frankly, the bigger your company is, the more difficult it is to sell your company on working with user groups. In fact, I had an individual who I was at the user group breakfast last year came up to me and said, you know, last year we sat down and talked and you said that you were working with your company to get some programs with user groups developed. And at the end of my talk here, I'll tell you about some of the progress we finally made. Well, a big mutual benefit to working with user groups is doing events. And when you're thinking about doing these events, realize that we want to do all of your events, but there are 1,200 of you. And realize we have a resource crunch. You know, even a company as large as Aldis only has 60 or 70 people out in the field. We only have so many product managers. It's very difficult for us to do them all. And when you're asking us to do these events, realize that you're not just competing with other user groups for doing events. You're competing with Apple, who wants us to do an event. You're competing with a corporation that wants us to do an event. You're competing with trade shows that want these bodies. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough bodies. So you need to think about how can you sell us on doing the event. And it's because I can't think of any event that Aldis has ever said no to because we thought the group was too small. But it's almost always because we don't have the resources to fulfill it. So let me tell you a little bit about how you can sell your event to us. The first thing, which might seem really obvious, is to tell us about your group. Not just the size. You know, Kathy talked about how important numbers are, and they are, because we won't be in business unless we sell software. But numbers are just one factor. Tell us a little bit about your members. Tell us where they work, what they do, what are they interested in, what kind of software do they use. Because you say, oh, well, I've only got 25 people that attend my user group meeting. But for Aldis, for example, corporations are a very big market for us. If 3 of those 25 people are MIS managers at Fortune 1000 companies, that's going to make it a very incredible event, even though there might be 25 people attending it. You know, like Kathy also said, think about combining with other groups. It's a very powerful way to increase those numbers because unfortunately that is a reality. The more people we talk to, the more product we're going to sell. And if we don't sell product, we're not going to be able to come back for the next time you want us. Be realistic when you're telling us about your group and about your expectations about what we can do for you. You know, first thing is that we need time to plan these events. Typically, our people out in the field are booked at least a month or 2 in advance. So please try to give us at least 2 months in advance notice when you want us to come out and participate with you. Think about using outside promotion to advertise your event. You can often get a free listing in the events section of your local newspaper just by calling them up and letting them know. And let's face it, again, more people is good for both of us in this case, because not only will we get to talk to more people, but these additional people that will be brought in are potentially new users for your group. You might also want to think about the fact that when we're doing an event, we have in the past been asked to do things in terms of a shootout with our competitors. And what we've found is that this doesn't often create a positive atmosphere and really doesn't always allow us to comfortably share pertinent information about our products. You know, sometimes there are things that you want to talk about, and when your competitors are there, you feel like you can't always tip your hat. Another thing that's important to consider is what we will need to effectively demonstrate our product. For instance, a 19-inch monitor is not going to be very effective for a group of 70 people. But that's something that we can discuss when we begin to plan the event. And lastly, think about making the event as painless as possible, like not starting it at 7 a.m. You have to realize, after working with Apple so long, I know most of these Apple people, so they can realize where I'm coming from. In fact, I wanted to accuse Craig Elliott of calling my hotel this morning and setting off the fire alarm to wake me up. In closing, help us to make your user groups a valuable resource to your members. You know, one way that we can help you is by offering you review copies of our software for your newsletters. And that's the special information I have to talk about. All that we're asking, and this is a somewhat new program, is that the president needs to put the request in writing. And then we'll send you a copy of the software that you request. Then just send us a copy of the printed review and you will be eligible for receiving another product. The software we send you is yours to keep. The group can use it for either their library or for raffling off. Now, we've got two different groups at Aldis that we've got represented here. We have, for our San Diego products, we have Joanne Rush. She can be reached at area code 619-695-6956. The extension is 318. For the Seattle-based products, you'll want to contact Shannon Wilcox, and she's at 206-343-3277. What I'd like to do is, they're actually here today. I'd like to ask them to stand up. So first, Joanne, who's the marketing communication manager for our Silicon Beach subsidiary. She's in the back of the room there. Stand up, Joanne. Okay. And then Shannon Wilcox, who's sitting right next to her. She, among other things, is our user group coordinator at Aldis in Seattle. Well, all I'd like to do now is just, again, thank Apple Computer for giving us this opportunity. Certainly, if you have any other questions about this new program for review copies, both myself, Joanne, and Shannon will be here after the meeting. We've got business cards for you so we can give you our addresses and all that good stuff. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come up here and talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. One other thing that I wanted to mention too is we put together something new in conjunction with the Macintosh News Service. I bet everybody here knows Don Rittner one way or another, online or through the Mac News Service. But something else we put together is a Speakers Bureau. So a lot of the difficulty we see with people trying to work with developers is getting that coordination. Who's the right person to call at the developer? The developers tell us we don't really know how to get hold of user groups in a certain area. So we've given Don some resources and our database, and also done some mailings out to developers. And he's put together a program where developers fill out an application about the types of products they want to demonstrate, the areas that they cover, things like that. User groups can fill out an application, which was in the monthly mailing, I think the last monthly mailing, where it's also on America Online. Fill out their application about the size of their group, where they meet, the times they meet, and then if you have an opportunity to come up, you can call Don. He can look through his database of developers and try and make a match to help you fill those slots in your meetings. In the same way, developers can call Don. If they happen to be in Cincinnati on the third week of the month, they can find out what user groups are meeting at that time to try and make that coordination better. So contact Don, America Online, at AFL Don R. It's probably the easiest way, and try and get your meetings coordinated. So I think there's a lot of good opportunities for developers to work with user groups and user groups to work better with developers. I think there'll be a lot of value added on both sides.
In the past decade, Harvard has investigated, experimented, and now is currently massively implementing what it is called a new pathway.
See, this fusion is like all the way around. Yeah. So pulses, you know, all that stuff.
The principal objective is that students learn how to become a lifetime learner.
He's got a murmur, uh-oh.
There's a huge mass that I'm outlining here.
The primary strategy for using computers in the curriculum at Harvard Medical School is to encourage problem solving and use of information tools as a paradigm for later professional practice. The main advantage of this case-based problem solving approach for first-year students is that it introduces them very early to the problem solving issues of clinical medicine.
What kind of murmur is it?
It's an ejection murmur, isn't it? That's what it sounds like to me.
This is S1, this is S2.
So rather than learning didactic, abstract knowledge divorced from any real patients, they're motivated by the real-life kinds of problems that they're going to have to solve.
The interactive programs allow us to actually pretend we're in the position of a physician and order EKGs, order certain laboratory tests, prescribe certain medicines. Then we have that feedback from the computer. The interaction that we get from the computer is very helpful. It's like having an instructor with us.
Medicine involves dealing with patients, with their heart sounds, with their lung sounds, affects, with their images, with graphical displays of their data.
Click on one of these guys and then we can hear about it.
What do you want?
for cardiology and respiratory physiology, having breath sounds and heart sounds just at your fingertips is very important. Because unless you correlate an exact sound with a disease process as you're studying it, it's really difficult to remember what, they're very subtle differences. And having them all together simultaneously makes a tremendous difference in terms of retention.
And see some of the changes that you'd see in that disease.
Right, the narrowing, I guess, of the mitral valve.
Right, and you could see some of the changes in the heart superimposed on the similar changes you would hear, actually, with a stethoscope.
You ever go to the library? You can just get a headache looking at the number of journals that come out each month. You cannot keep up with it. Now, a computer, though, can. And you just tell the computer a couple keywords, and it tells you within minutes your answer.
You can search by a subject heading, by an author, by a journal title, or you can just type in whatever it is that you're looking for. And then it gives you little symbols on what to do. Knowledge Finder is used in labs. Probably people have it in their offices. If they have home computers, they could use it at home.
Today we're going to use the PharmAid program to learn something about the autonomic nervous system.
In one of our courses, specifically starting in pharmacology, there was developed a computer program using HyperCard in which one tried to relate drugs, also to give all of their physical and biologic characteristics and how they interrelate to each other.
And what we find is that a large number of students use the program virtually every day or every other day to review various topics that have been gone over in lectures, conferences, and tutorials.
What are the differences between the beta 1 and beta 2 block?
The essence is really to get them to learn by themselves, because they're not going to stop after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They're going to go on for the rest of their life learning. And there's no way you can manage the information unless you're prepared to assimilate it yourself.
I think learning is primarily a process of engaging the student in the learning process. And that means that the students have to enjoy it, they have to feel that it's beneficial, and they have to sort of buy into it.
Like atherosclerotic aneurysm? Both? Don't you think both?
We have no time left.
No, we blew it.
To have the computer with these interactive programs that show you just tremendous depth and a lot of visuals, images, things in motion, ventriculograms, echocardiograms, just really enhances the learning. Makes it a lot more fun. It's a lot more palatable than just having textbooks.
I say B is probably right.
Yeah, I think it's B too. Microcytic myocarditis, I've never heard of that. I think PathGame is a really good example of how a program that is educational can also be fun and sort of encourages people to get together and do something in an atmosphere of sort of sharing information. You get pictures and you get questions and you answer them right or wrong and it moves or it beeps. And because it does what it does well, people like to use it.
The orientation of the slide is normal like this, 2 by 3. This looks fine the way it is.
Harvard has instituted a whole series of workshops to assist whomever, be they students, techs, faculty who want to become familiar with computers at whatever level.
First we take the slide. This is a slide of myocardium that's been stained. And we drop it in the scanner. And we assume the scanner's been focused with this knob here.
We found that a number of faculty that really felt this was beyond them, that they really couldn't do much, have gotten totally involved and engaged in this and found how easy it was.
I'd like to see it do some work on x-rays, because that's really the area that I'm interested in.
The work that's done at Harvard is shared by a number of universities, and we also use their material. There's a Northeast University Consortium of medical schools, and instead of reinventing the wheel, what we do now is we get together and say, look, I have this, it's a nice program, we like it, let's put it in the kitty, and the bowl, the common pot. And so it's a way of sharing resources and time.
Then, always
Coordinate.
whether the section is this way or this way or
just
whatever.
like the book.
It might pay in a few minutes for us to go over to the images on the computer screen again and take a look at that stains in more detail. It's getting easier all the time to program. You don't have to be a professional programmer any longer. You can do the programming essentially in the English language. Most of the underlying technology is transparent even to the programmer, just as it is to the user. So that's the olfactory tract, myelinated fibers running along the base of the frontal lobe. So it's possible for any of us, even me, to step in and write material that links a given picture to a given body of text material, to a video disc, say, showing a patient displaying certain symptoms. These are all new approaches that we never could do from the printed page of a textbook. And we can come in from the sylvian fissure into buried cortex. And what have we got for buried cortex first?
So where's the rest of the cerebellum?
It's not here.
It sure is not here. Can we?
Harvard is now requiring, which means demanding, that its medical students achieve certain skills and knowledge about computers before graduating, because it's like born free. They will not survive without this knowledge of computers. They will be dependent on other people telling them data, interpreting data, perhaps incorrectly when they themselves must use them. It's not enough for people to say, yes, it's essential that they know how to do it. You have to use a telephone, you have to use a fax machine, you have to use a stethoscope, you have to use a computer.